friends, don't be grim, cause I'm dreary, and today we'll be taking yet another look at one of my animation cringe compilations. These are always a blast to make, and this one was no different. I feel like all the animations in here really had a great storyline and had a ton of stories to tell. And so with that out of the way, let us get right into the video. So for the first animation we're looking at today, we're going to be looking at a blood pop animation, and the animation is truthful to its name, having lots of gore scenes. I do feel like I can understand a small story here, even though there isn't much there and it loops a whole lot. But one thing I think could really increase this and make it seem a bit more understandable is adding a few more frames here and there. Sometimes I didn't really get what was supposed to be happening until I rewatched it 3 or 4 times, and later on in the video I'd be like, oh, that's tears, and not, some random glitch in the background. Or that's the character getting angry and being covered in blood, and not the color of the character's fur changing entirely. Another thing is the shading. For blood especially, shading is very important. If you just have one slab of red down the entire thing, it isn't going to look like blood. It's going to look more like raspberry jam or ketchup. When you have just straight red, it doesn't give you the vibe that you're going for. So even a little bit of shading around the edges, a little bit darker red, would really make this blood stand out and would really bring in the blood for blood pop. Alright, and let's move on to the next one. For this next animation, we have an animation meme I cannot pronounce because I don't speak Russian, but I'm not quite convinced that the creator of this animation meme does either, because I could not follow his storyline. I ended up looking up the song's lyric to find out what it was supposed to be about, but even then I couldn't follow the storyline that was being portrayed in the animation meme itself. And not to mention proportions. I get that this is a beginning animator, and so I completely understand the proportions are very hard to grasp. But something you can always do to make your proportions seem a little better is look on the internet for some guides. This is more of a chibi art piece in my own humble opinion, so something that you could do to really make this look more proportional is look up a chibi head guide, as you can use the heads of your characters to determine how big the rest of your body should be. Something I find odd, however, is that there is only one section in this animation meme in which there is a fluid lip sync, and I don't mean fluid in that the frame rate is very, very high, I mean that it's fluid because it matches. How the lips move looks natural, it looks good. But that's very quickly abandoned, and I feel like that's a bit odd, because it would be a little easier to make a lip sync at that low a frame rate, but it still looked good enough that I don't see why they didn't continue it, just to make it look slightly better as time went on. And the last thing I will be talking about is you don't have to push yourself to animate an entire animation meme. If you feel like you cannot do the full one, you shouldn't have to sit there and drag out the last 16 seconds like this person did, because to me, the last 16 seconds especially feels extremely stagnant. There really isn't anything there to hold it together, and we've already seen the movements that the characters are doing, so to me, it just seems like a way to get a bit more view time or watch time. Something that you can always do is pace yourself a little bit. I know that I cannot do very, very long animations, and that I'm always pacing myself to do just little short ones, just to test myself and try to become better at animating. So always make sure that you take breaks and don't stretch out your animation, that way it doesn't feel stagnant. And with that being said, let's move on to the next one. Alright, so for this next one, we have the Friends animation meme, which I am a huge fan of. I absolutely love the Friend animation memes, and they're one of my favorite songs, so when I saw this, I had high hopes, and the animation itself and the art style is very, very cute. But I do have some things to say about it. The intro, for example, is 20 seconds long. This animator has both a 20-second long intro and a fairly short comparison outro. While the intro has a little bit of animation in it, I do feel like you could always shorten it just a tad, that way you don't have to have someone sitting there, because the first 20 seconds or 30 or 40 seconds of your video is the most important, because that's when people will click off more. So that's why you always want to have a very, very short intro. And especially if your video is only a minute long, try to make those as short as possible. Next is it loops. Now, I don't mind looping animation memes, but you always want to make sure that it loops in the correct way. Now, this isn't having any Now, this person doesn't have to worry about lip syncing being off mark or something like that because they didn't choose to do any lip sync, but I do feel like they should have had a few more scenes to swap to, because there was only 3 or 4 scenes for you to see, and that didn't always fit the lyrics that were going. The next thing is that there was very, very harsh tweening there. You would see the limbs move and the heads would bob, but as soon as they got to their desired location, they would just snap and reset back, which made the whole animation feel very, very choppy, even though it had a fairly high frame rate and looked really good. Something that you can do is always try to reset it slowly back to that same position by taking the same curve that you did to get it to the position that you wanted in the first place. It might take a few extra seconds and you might have to worry about timing a little bit more, but that can always help you with it looking less choppy. Next is the storyline. It really didn't make sense what was happening on screen and what the song was actually saying. Both characters, in my opinion, from what I saw, appeared to have crushes on the other one, and that's not the point of the song. There are tons of love songs in which both sides have a crush on the other one, and I feel like that might have fit better with what this person was trying to do, because at first I thought it was going to be one of those, oh, Sans doesn't like the Sans fangirl, because I find those amusing, right? But they both appeared to love each other, even though that's not what the song was talking about. That's just a little nitpick, and I completely understand that, but that is a little nitpick with one of my favorite songs I hold near and dear to my heart. And the last thing I'll be talking about today is the shading. There really doesn't appear to be much in the way of shading, but the lighting was a little bit off on Cross, as he appeared to be glowing in some scenes. I don't know if that's just me, but his shirt appears to be radiating energy. Now, I completely understand if that's what you were trying to go for, was that Sans, or Cross rather, is a god, if that's what you were trying to say by his glowing shirt, but if not, I would keep that in mind. Now, I really like this last animation. It seems like a beginning animator getting right into it, and honestly, I love it a lot. The designs for the characters are super cute, and I can honestly see the storyline that this person's trying to portray. Even though I really don't know Cat's emotions, or whether or not this is a Warrior Cats thing, I don't know, but this art style itself is really, really cute, and I just love it a lot. But the proportions of these cats really don't make sense. With the forward-facing shots, they seem to have much different in proportions than you see here when they're facing each other. A good thing to do with the sideways facing proportions would be make the heads both a little smaller, the necks a bit wider, and make sure that you can see that they're arching a bit sideways, so it doesn't look like they're very humanoid like they do now with the slightly humanoid necks. Another thing is push the eyes a bit forward, because when you're facing sideways like that, you should really only see about a triangle of the eyes. And I know I have trouble with that too, but it can really help if you put it into perspective of it is a triangle and not the full circle that you can see by a face onwards shot. And then a good thing too would be kind of increase the frame rate a little bit. This is a bit more of an animatic than an animation, only having really less than 30 or so frames for this entire animation. And a good thing to increase the frame rate without having to change much else in this animation is just add slight changes, you know? Something to keep the watcher really, really interested in what's happening on screen. Maybe the eyes shifting from left to right slightly, a tail curling in the background, or the ears shifting back and forth. I feel like that would really make these characters stick and keep the viewer's attention for longer. With that being said, let's move on to the outro.